Rachel Reeves entered the CBI annual conference in Westminster with a confident demeanour, but it was clear this was no ordinary speaking engagement. The Labour Chancellor faced a room brimming with Britain's most powerful business leaders, their expressions betraying frustration and scepticism. Labour's first budget in 14 years, which included a staggering £25 billion hike in employer national insurance contributions, NICs, had sent shockwaves through the business community. Today, Reeves was here to defend it. The stakes couldn't have been higher. For weeks, businesses had sounded alarms over Labour's fiscal policies, accusing the government of stifling competitiveness and driving investment out of the UK. The room bristled with tension as the CBI's Director General, Rain Newton-Smith, took the stage to deliver a fiery opening salvo. "When you hit profits, you hit competitiveness, you hit investment, you hit growth," she declared, her voice steady but stern. "Almost two-thirds of firms told us this budget will damage UK investment. Tax rises like this must never again be simply done to business. That's the road to unintended consequences."
Will the government make any changes after this disastrous budget?
I think, again, it's important to note the inheritance that we have at the moment and the difficult decisions that the Chancellor is having to make. So I think that context is important to get the public finances back on track. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor have said the key thing for this government is around growth in the economy, so we can start to move on and invest again in the NHS, in our public services that have been so cut over the last 14 years. This is not an inheritance that anybody wanted, and these difficult decisions are not ones anybody wanted to take, but this is the responsible way that the Chancellor is dealing with what we have inherited.
People are starting to doubt the Chancellor's economic credentials. They seem to be an economist with the truth, but perhaps not so good when she's doing the sums. Is lying on your CV a breach of the ministerial code?
I'm not. Today, what I'm really here to talk about as the Home Office Minister for Policing is around police reform, and that's a really big, important issue for my constituents and for people up and down the country. So that's really what I wanted to focus on today. I'm not able to comment on any of that. I'm not party to any of those those issues. But what I am,
is it a breach of the ministerial code in your view, or indeed in line with the rules, to lie on your CV? It's a simple question.
There is a ministerial code. I am not party, as I say, to the issue that you're raising, but there is a clear ministerial code. The Prime Minister has been very upfront about how he expects ministers to abide by that ministerial code.
Okay.
But could we talk about police reform? Because that's really the big issue that I'm really passionate about.
I'm sorry, Dana, not today.
That's a shame, because it's...
The murmurs grew louder as Reeves pressed on. "We had to clear up the mess of what we had been left," she said, attempting to project strength and resolve. "The easiest thing I could have done is to dodge the difficult choices. But I was not willing to do that. Labour is building a stronger foundation for Britain's future." But her words were met with visible disapproval. The first pointed question came from a tech entrepreneur seated near the front. "How do you expect us to innovate when our resources are drained by taxes? This isn't an investment in the future, it's a burden," he said sharply. Before Reeves could respond, another voice joined the fray. A representative from a large manufacturing firm added, "We've already announced job cuts because of this budget. You're squeezing the life out of businesses that are already struggling. How does that help the workers Labour claims to stand for?" Reeves remained composed, repeating Labour's justification for the tax increases. "These measures are about fairness," she insisted. "We're asking those who can contribute more to do so we can invest in the NHS, rebuild infrastructure, and create long-term growth." However, it was clear that her message wasn't resonating. Rain Newton-Smith, sitting just feet away, leaned over to whisper to a colleague as murmurs rippled through the room. The CBI Director General's earlier words about unintended consequences seemed to hang in the air, amplifying the frustration of the gathered executives. Meanwhile, outside the conference hall, the backlash against Labour's policies was on full display. Protesters held signs reading "Labour's tax bombshell" and "Save our jobs." Their chants of "Stop the squeeze" could be heard faintly inside, adding to the charged atmosphere. Public sentiment mirrored the discontent within the business community. A petition demanding a new general election had recently surpassed 1.5 million signatures. Spearheaded by disillusioned voters, the petition accused Labour of betraying its campaign promises. "This budget isn't what we voted for," one supporter of the petition said in an interview. "We wanted change, not more economic pain." Though the petition was unlikely to trigger an election, its popularity highlighted the mounting dissatisfaction with Labour's leadership. Many voters felt betrayed by recent decisions, including cuts to winter fuel payments and sweeping tax hikes that disproportionately affected small businesses and middle-income families. The latest polling numbers painted a grim picture for Labour. The party, which had enjoyed a commanding lead after its landslide election victory in July, was now trailing the Conservatives by 3 points. Reform UK, meanwhile, was gaining ground, capitalising on voter disillusionment with both major parties. Within Labour's own ranks, the backlash was causing fractures. Some MPs privately questioned the wisdom of such aggressive tax policies. "We promised to support working people, not alienate them," one anonymous Labour MP said. "This budget makes us look out of touch and overly punitive." Prime Minister Keir Starmer, aware of the growing unrest, tried to shift the narrative by announcing a new initiative on the same day as Reeves's appearance. Labour unveiled a high-profile plan to combat drink spiking, including training 10,000 bar staff to prevent and respond to incidents. While the initiative was praised by some as a step toward addressing violence against women, critics accused the government of using it as a distraction from its economic woes. "It's a good idea, but it won't fix the damage Labour has done with this budget," said one commentator. As Reeves wrapped up her address, the room offered polite applause, but the undercurrent of dissatisfaction was undeniable. Delegates filed out, some shaking their heads, others muttering about missed opportunities and misplaced priorities. The Chancellor had defended her policies with conviction, but it was clear that the business community remained deeply sceptical. Outside, reporters cornered several attendees for comments. One CEO didn't mince words. "Rachel Reeves may think she's laying the groundwork for Britain's future, but from where I'm standing, she's digging us into a deeper hole." For Reeves and Starmer, the challenges ahead are enormous. Labour's once solid support is eroding, and their ability to course-correct will determine the party's fate. The fallout from the budget continues to dominate headlines, and speculation is growing that Labour may be forced to soften its stance on tax hikes in the coming months. But for now, the question remains: can Labour weather this storm, or will its fiscal gamble become its undoing? One thing is certain: the political drama is far from over, and the stakes couldn't be higher.